Imagine a tower that's at least 11 times as large as Earth. It has countless floors, and the outer part of each floor is as big as North America. That's the setting of Tower of God. In this video, I'm going to explain everything about the world building and the power system of the Tower of God universe in simple terms. This video will be spoiler free to anime-onlies. Alright, so starting with the premise. As we all know, the story of Tower of God is about a few regulars and a couple of irregulars who seek to reach the top of the tower, because reaching the top means getting your hands on things like unimaginable wealth, power, and even getting your deepest desires granted. But of course, reaching the top of the tower is easier said than done. While each floor is like a continent in itself, there are also these guys called floor guardians, who test you to see if you have what it takes to move on to the next floor. Some fans like to think of it as a game, but I'd argue that this tower is basically a never-ending exam. Zahard himself, the king of the tower, has conquered 134 floors, but there's more. Nobody knows where it ends. There must still be so many floors left to be conquered. I'll talk about the structure of the tower in a bit, but let's quickly touch on what is a regular versus an irregular. The ones who aim to climb the tower are formally known as regulars. They're the ones chosen by Hiadon. Every regular seeking to ascend the tower is approached by Hiadon and offered the chance to take its trials. Since their potential is already acknowledged by Hiadon, regulars are allowed to skip the first floor's trial and go straight to the second floor. Whereas an irregular is an outsider who's entered the tower by opening the gates on their own. They're a mysterious bunch, and according to past records, irregulars have all been extraordinarily strong. They go against the rules of the tower. You gotta know, the tower is not a place that can be entered through normal means. Unchosen irregulars like Baam must first prove their worth to Hiadon by passing a special test on the first floor before they're sent to join the regulars on the second floor. Now, let's go over the battle system. The battle system revolves around a special mythical substance called Shinsu. In literal terms, it means divine water. It comes from the tower itself, and it flows around and throughout the entire tower like air. It's like oxygen to everyone who lives in the tower, and I mean literally, because if there's no Shinsu, the inhabitants can't breathe. But there's one notable difference. You see, air always behaves the same, but Shinsu is different. It doesn't follow the same rules everywhere. In some places, it might act like a gas just like the air we breathe, but in other places, it can be water or even solid. The way Shinsu behaves depends on things like the environment of the floor it's on, how much of it is there, and even who's in charge of the floor. It's almost as though Shinsu can change the laws of physics depending on where it is. Naturally, because of this, Shinsu isn't just limited to water. Since it's the source of all the energy and stuff inside the tower, it can also be fire, light, and other elements. The simplest way to understand this is to imagine if the air around you can suddenly turn into fire. That's Shinsu. It can change in infinite ways. Like we said before, it can be manipulated into other unique forms, but this depends on the person's own innate Shinsu qualities. Think of it like Nen from Hunter x Hunter. It varies depending on the person. Though regulars need permission from the administrator to use Shinsu, while irregulars like Baam don't need any permission. Irregulars also always have a natural knack for controlling Shinsu. By the way, regulars can also use Shinsu using special items. These are like the cursed tools from Jujutsu Kaisen, but without permission, you'd be like Maki or Toji. Next, let's go over the status quo. The tower is structured like a game from the perspective of the regulars who are chosen to climb, but there's plenty of bureaucracy. Each floor has a floor guardian except the 43rd floor. Actually, there's a rather shocking reason why the 43rd floor no longer has a floor guardian. But because I don't want to spoil things for the anime-onlies, let's just say that someone did something to that particular guardian, which is honestly insane considering how the guardians are the ultimate authority on each floor. You can think of each floor as that floor guardian's domain expansion. They have absolute control over the Shinsu of that particular floor. It's logically impossible to defeat a floor administrator on their own floor. The author has mentioned that not even Zahard himself can do it, but don't worry about it. The guardians are more unbiased than your high school teacher. And this has been the case since ancient times. Even before Zahard founded the Zahard Empire tens of thousands of years ago, the floor guardians were still just doing their job because they're like the tower itself. Now, when Zahard and others conquered the first 134 floors, he founded the Zahard Empire. And just like that, he became the king of the tower. He then put into place a few systematic changes in the system, and one of those changes is the creation of a few jobs such as the test administrator. It's a job that a ranker can take, which makes them examiners who can conduct tests on behalf of the actual guardians of the floor. Then, there are rulers who actually gain the authority over a floor with permission from the floor guardian himself. To put this into perspective, Zahard is the ruler of the highest known conquered floor in the tower. He's the ruler of the 134th floor. Other floors, with the exception of the first floor and the 43rd floor, are all ruled by high rankers. But what's the difference between a ranker and a higher ranker? Well, a ranker is someone who's reached the 134th floor, while a higher ranker is someone who ranks among the 1% of all rankers. Meaning, in a room full of 100 rankers, only one of them would be a high ranker. Alright, so after the status quo, let's talk about the structure of the tower itself. There's a test area called Inner Tower, the residential area called Outer Tower, and the middle area. The Inner Tower is where the regulars climb the tower. This is where they have to take tests, clear them, and then move to upper floors one by one. Once a regular reaches floor 20, they can then go in and out of the middle area of the tower. It's the transition between the inner and outer tower. After a regular reaches the 20th floor, they can use the middle area to exit to the outer area and just retire if they so choose. The area itself is just a transition point though. However, many people do operate businesses there, but only after permission. Next is the outer tower. This is where the inhabitants of each floor actually live. The outer tower of each floor is as big as the American continent. Naturally, each floor's outer tower has a different culture, environment, even ecosystems. It really just depends on the wishes of the rulers and the guardians of each floor. Most people in the tower are born on the outer tower, and apparently, a great majority of them spend their entire lives on the same floor. This is why there are many cultures on the outer tower who are unaware of the Zahard Empire or even of the inner tower. These are like uncontacted Amazon tribes, in a way that they end up forming their own small nations with their own rulers. It also goes without saying that most people don't qualify to be regulars. They don't earn the right to climb the inner tower. But some are eventually chosen, and even if they fail, their lives are still better than normal residents, especially if they climb beyond the 20th floor. Finally, there's the top of the tower. It's said that everything can be found at the top, but it's also true that nobody has reached the top yet. Yes, the 134th floor is considered the top in the Zahard Empire, but it's not the actual top because the 135th floor exists. And even Zahard himself eventually wants to continue onwards by conquering the next floor and beyond. As for what we do know about the 135th floor, it's said that the guardian of this floor is too hostile to let anyone pass any test. Which brings us to the next piece of lore. There are 3 lords who take turns every 1,000 years to rule the tower in Zahard's place. They're like Zahard's proxy, if you will. The current lord is kind of a conservative, which is why it's not his priority to continue onward and expand the Zahard Empire by one more floor. However, people do believe that when this guy's turn is over and the next one takes over, the next floor will be conquered because unlike this guy, the next lord is progressive. Anyways, 3 lords take turns in Zahard's place because the man himself is usually hibernating. Ultimately, we don't know anything about the top of the tower either, but it's said that you can see actual stars at the top, unlike the artificial constructs of stars you see in the tower. The scope of this story's world building is already greater than even legendary epics like in One Piece. Honestly, I just hope we get to see the ending in our lifetimes.